I see we have a number of people logged on already from around the world. Welcome. My name's Anthony Greenfield. I'm sat here in Leeds in the north of England, up in Yorkshire, and sunny up here for a change. So today I'm going to be talking to you about leadership and change in a time of COVID-19. So we've got 1 minute to go until the start time. I hope you can all see me. I hope you can all hear me. And as we click through, it's now, I make it almost time to kick off. So I trust you are well. I'm at home at the moment in Leeds with my family. We are keeping away from offices. We are self-isolating and staying away from people. So we have limited movement at the moment, very unusual time, but I'm engaging in webinars and online training rather than flying around the world to meet people face to face. So let's see how this works. Welcome you all. I hope you are keeping well and staying safe. And today I am going to be talking to you about leadership and change in the time of COVID-19. You'll notice, I don't know if any of you have been, hello, Tox from Nigeria. Thank you for sending me a message. You've worked out that in the bottom right, there's a little chat box where you can put messages. Good, Apollonius from Ghana. I'm afraid I won't be able to, thank you. Welcome everybody. Kindly make sure that your audio and cameras are enabled. I hope everybody is hearing me as well as seeing me. So my background, I have worked for very many years, for 30 odd years, mainly as a consultant, as a trainer, and as a coach. And I've worked with organizations that are trying to improve their performance, trying to improve in all sorts of ways. So I have huge experience, which I'd like to share with you today regarding organization change, but how to lead during those times and during times of turmoil. So I'm going to turn to my presentation and kick off. As I've mentioned, we're talking about leadership and change in a time of COVID-19. So there's a little bit of my background. Coach, a consultant, a trainer, an author of 2 books, which I will come to. I started off with Accenture, worked for another number of companies before 2005, where I went independent. I worked with Aztec, delivering courses in various locations, but right now online. Also worked with University of Leeds Business School as a lecturer and support dissertations for people's MBAs. I've worked with a vast range of organizations, and in recent years that includes Royal Mail, Southwest Water, big utility company, ASOS, who's the online fashion retailer. And right now I'm doing a massive project with Jaguar Land Rover. So you've probably heard of them, a big car manufacturer. Clearly things are on hold right now, but we hope to get going again in the coming months. So there's a very little bit about me. I live in the north of England, in the county of Yorkshire, in the city of Leeds with my family, my wife, and my 2 daughters. And I'm broadcasting to you from our loft up in the top of the house on a nice sunny day. So I've also written 2 books, The 5 Forces of Change and 5 Tales of Change. And these will form the kind of framework for a lot of what I'm going to talk about today. Now, I'd like to try you off with a little survey, okay? So in a moment, I'm going to put a survey up on the screen, and it's a multiple choice survey. In fact, I'll put that up right now. Let's just kick things off a bit and get people's views here. So what do you think are the biggest obstacles to making change happen at work? So I've given you a number of options there, and just pick the top 1 or 2 or 3 you think are the biggest obstacles. So if you could do that now, I see so many people are starting to vote. That's excellent. So we all face obstacles, and it's about understanding these obstacles and how that relates to our current situation that I will be covering today. So I'm giving it a little more moment. I see people are still voting right now, so I will allow that to continue for a bit longer. You seem to have got quite a large number of attendees right now. So I'll give you some time. What do we think? Do we think it's organization inertia and politics? Do we think it's lack of training? Do we think it's employer resistance? Poor executive sponsorship? Middle management resistance? Or the limited time and budget and resources? Or poor project management? So please go ahead and vote on that. Okay, people still voting. Okay, I'll give you sort of another half a minute on that at maximum. So if you could vote right now, that would be excellent. Thank you. And in a moment, I will share with you the outcome. So I'll give you another 10 seconds more if you would like to jump in there and vote now. That would be great. 5 seconds. Okay, brilliant. Bring that to an end right now. I'm going to end the voting. Oh, we're still going. Anyone else or any more? Get in there and vote now. Right. Oh, sorry, folks, but I've ended it now. Ooh. And you should now see how have we come out. 43% of the voted. So what you should see now is that of the people that voted, 36% said that organization inertia and politics was a big issue. Another 36% said lack of training. That's interesting. And we have 29% for employee resistance. We have 11% for poor executive sponsorship. We have only 7% for middle management resistance. And people feel also that they have a limited time, budget, and resources. That's 21%. Another 11% said poor project management. So we have quite a distribution. The biggest ones seem to be inertia and politics, lack of training, and employee resistance. Okay, that's very interesting. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close that down, and I'm going to come back to where we were in the presentation and just share with you some research. This might differ somewhat from some of your voting, but ProSci, they're an international organization. Every year they publish a benchmarking report. What they do is they interview thousands of people around the world about their experiences of change, good or bad. And one of the many questions that they ask is around what do people think are the biggest obstacles to success? And out of that, on a consistent basis, over many years, the number one they rank is employer resistance, which people rank quite highly. But they also say middle management resistance, which seem to be less in your view. Poor executive sponsorship, that's the leadership from the very top of it for the change. Limited time, budget, and resources, which was certainly what you got, and you also came up with corporate inertia and politics. You mentioned training. I think that might vary a little bit in different parts of the world, but certainly consistently, a lot of the issues are around people. And that is really what I've found in my experience. So let's have a look at that in a bit more detail. So what is this connection then between COVID-19 crisis and organizational change? You might think they're two different things, but if we look at COVID-19, obviously it's had a big negative impact on health. It's also impacted industry around the world. You only have to look at the price of oil that's dropped away to see how much industry has dropped away. Teams, of course, are affected, so people at work, and obviously individuals like yourselves and myself and everyone. And then on the other hand, you have organizational change. That can be like a restructure, a merger, a re-engineering of processes, whatever that might be. So what is the common factor? Well, the common factor that I can see is people's response. It's a very strong emotional response, particularly to COVID-19. We're seeing a lot of anxiety, frustration. Some people respond with determination. There's also feelings of helplessness and other negative responses. And that goes, I'm afraid, for organizational change. When it's very significant change, like a restructure, for example, where people are uncertain for many months, there is also anxiety, frustration, determination, and some feelings of helplessness. And what brings this all together is leadership. Leadership is about people. Emotions are about people. Leadership is about how do we manage people through this difficult time that is causing all these negative emotions. How do we manage and lead change more successfully by bringing our people with us? How do we help people through this very difficult and turbulent time as well? So that's what I'm going to cover today. Now, I've worked all over the world in many different organizations, in many different industries. All of these organizations have been trying to improve performance, implement a new vision or a new strategy, and that causes disruption. And the question I asked a number of years ago was, how does turmoil, sort of a state of disturbance, confusion, or a certain uncertainty, how does that affect people's motivation? And what came out of that research was really an understanding of those effects and how do we address them. But most importantly, what came out was a framework for leading people successfully through times of turmoil. And that is really what I'm going to try and share with you today. Now, admittedly, the situation is that clearly we are in a time of great difficulty, and there's a lot to cover. Now, I only have an hour to do it, so I will give you an overview and give you hopefully some important insights that will help you. So let's begin at the beginning. Let us look at people. What happens to us when we are faced with turmoil and change? Well, we're human beings, aren't we? And we tend to respond in two ways. We respond rationally, logically, but also emotionally. The issue comes is if you try and manage change or manage people through difficulty by assuming they're perfectly logical. Let me explain. So we know there's a pandemic out there, particularly in the UK, we've been hard hit. And so the logic would say, well, there's a deadly pandemic, we must all self-isolate. We must keep our distance from each other and where we can, stay at home. And yet there's an emotional response as well. People are saying things like, well, it won't affect us. Let's go to the beach. So we saw in Australia, in Sydney, they had to close Bondi Beach, the famous beach, because people piled in there. The same went for the UK. So we're not entirely rational beings. We take a work example. For example, head office has come up with some new ideas, some new recommendations that will help us work faster and smarter. If we lived in a world of pure logic, we would say, right, well, our rational, logical response is head office recommendations will save time and money. Let's implement them. But what is the emotional response? How do people respond emotionally to being told to change the way they do things? Sometimes what you'll see is they'll say, well, what do they know at head office, how we operate on the ground? They think we're incompetent. I've been doing this job for 10 years. If I could do it smarter and faster, then you think I've done it by now. So there's an emotional element to this that we need to manage at the same time as managing the logical side. So today, let's look at why people struggle in times of turmoil and change, and how we as leaders can work with human nature to minimize resistance and disruption caused and maximize the benefits gained. Let's have a quick look at that. So my research identified 5 key areas: certainty, purpose, control, connection, and success. We all like a sense of certainty, but as you know, in these times and in times of significant change, there is great uncertainty. And we like a sense of purpose, a clear direction for where we're going. But during times like these and during times of change, there can be a lack of direction. We like to feel in control of our lives, and yet during times of change, we can feel helpless. We like to stay connected to people, to the people we work with, to friends. And yet at this time of COVID-19, there is a sense of loss as some of those connections are broken and people aren't able to even see close members of their families, particularly in the UK. And finally, there's success. When we go through major change, there is a fear of failure. How will we survive and perform in the new world? So these are the things that drive a drop in performance that's often associated with turmoil and change. And as well as that, there is the learning curve of grappling with new ways of doing things. And our job as leaders is to minimize the resistance, minimize the disruption, and maximize the benefits. So let's go through those 5. Let's start with certainty. Our need for stability and predictability. Well, this is a picture of people in the full hazmat outfits. They are saying, well, at the moment, obviously, we're seeing these people out and about. And of course, that creates a sense of uncertainty. So let's have a look at that then. What does all this uncertainty mean? Well, if something is important to you, for example, the health of your family, for example, or your colleagues, or maybe your job in a restructuring, if that is something that's important to you, becomes uncertain, then this causes stress. That is why people might say things like, well, I don't like change. What they're not realizing is that something important is become uncertain. It causes stress, and they have these negative feelings of anxiety and frustration. And that's why they don't like change. So let's have a look at how do we create certainty. So in order to minimize the effects, we need to create certainty for people. Let's have a look at this picture here. This shows just fairly recently in the UK, we had a storm called Storm Dennis. They all get names these days. And this is a photo from a passenger airline where people were being thrown about by Storm Dennis. And obviously, you can see a lot of them are grabbing hold of the seat in front of them and imagining they're rather worried, to say the least. So a simple question, a really simple question for you out there. If you're a passenger on an aircraft at a storm, how would you like the pilot to behave? I'm going to give you 3 really simple options. So let's have a look at this. So if you could vote very quickly, just pick one answer. If you're a passenger on an aircraft in a severe storm, how would you like the pilot to behave? Pick one answer. Would you like them to be silent? Would you like them to be nervous and confused? Or would you like them to be confident and communicating? So how would you like them to behave? Please go ahead and vote. Good, I'll give you a few moments more. A lot of you are voting, very well done. Thank you very much. Good, the majority of people have voted now. Give it a little moment longer. Good, thank you very much. So I'm going to end the voting now, and I'm going to share the results with you. So hopefully you can see the results on your screens. We do have 2 votes for silent. They'd like the pilot to keep their mouth shut. Well, that's interesting. We have 23 votes, or 66% of people said confidently communicating. Confidently communicating. So that one seems to win the day. Good. So let's just think about what does that actually mean. So we are talking here about confidently communicating. We're talking about this idea of certainty. If the pilot is nervous and confused, we will naturally feel nervous and confused because they're in charge, just like a leader in an organization. If they're silent, we might wonder what's going on. Have they jumped out the aircraft on a parachute, or are they too scared to tell us anything? But if they communicate calmly and confidently, then we all feel calm and more confident. And that is one of the secrets of creating certainty. So let's have a look at that. So great leaders, people who manage to create certainty in times of great turmoil, great leaders, well, what do? They are confident. They for confidence. They give us confidence by being certain themselves. They are certain of where they are going. They are confident, but they communicate that. On top of that, they have a vision, somewhere to go. This is where we're going, folks. Martin Luther King, I have a dream. They are trustworthy. We need to trust in them. And some of the ways they do that is through their communication, but also through their courage, and also being role models, doing what they say needs to be done. So in an organization, if they are banging on about customer service, then you better bet that the directors and the people in charge are taking care of customers as well. So these are the kind of things we need. But if you're only going to do one thing during difficult times, during times of turmoil and major change, you're only going to do one thing. It's communicate, communicate, communicate. Well-planned, continuous communication. We're seeing in Europe, the government are coming on the TV every single day to talk to people. So we're seeing that confidence, at least in those individuals, and they're telling us a story. Now, they don't always know what's going to happen next, but they're at least telling us what are their plans, how are they approaching it, where are we in the crisis. It's important to be open and honest. Firstly, you need to be trusted. If you lie, people will see through that. And being open and honest is about telling the bad news as well as the good news. We saw in China at the beginning of the COVID crisis that the government there was reluctant to tell people what was going on. And that's caused a huge loss of trust in the government amongst the people. So when you're at work, when you're going through a severe change in work, you may not have all the answers, but you do need to be honest about what you do know and open and communicate. And be honest, if you don't have the answer, don't make it up. Just tell people, we don't know yet. We're working on a plan. And wherever possible, make that communication two-way. So there we are. Two-way communication as well, to give people a sense of being involved and empowered. So keeping it simple then, building certainty is around passionate, visible, confident leadership. Now, it's difficult for you. If you're a leader and you're in the middle of a difficult situation, you may not feel confident. So you have to learn to become confident, get to grips with the situation so that you're confident of what you do know and what you don't know. Communication, as I've said, better to give people the bad news than no news at all. And where you can, communicate a high-level plan. So now we've had a look at creating certainty in uncertain times. Let's have a look about creating a sense of purpose. People need a sense of purpose, particularly during times of turmoil and change. So if you're sailing off in this ship into the wide unknown, into uncharted waters, it helps to have a clear and inspiring goal. You may be facing dangers and difficulties, but it's nice to know that there is an end goal in sight. So when you're going through organizational change, you do need to spend a good deal of time coming up with an inspiring and challenging vision that you can repeat and repeat. And that's what those great leaders did. So just take an example from COVID-19 and the UK government. UK government struggled for a while to get a clear message across. And finally, they came up with this: stay at home, protect the NHS, save lives. The beauty of this vision, really, or this purpose, is it's simple. Try and keep your visions as simple and clear as possible. Stay at home says what we need to do. Protect the NHS so it isn't overrun by people with sickness. And people love the NHS. People love our National Health Service in the UK. So that appeals to the heart as well as to the head. And obviously save lives, which is obviously a massively important end goal. So simplicity and appealing to the heart as well as the head, and in something that is inspiring to people. So during times of turmoil and change, great leaders focus on an inspiring vision. And during self-isolation, if you happen to be one of the people that is kind of stuck at home or having to work remotely, how do we keep a sense of purpose? Well, it's something that we're going to come back to in a moment, but there are certain things we can do. We can set ourselves daily goals. We can set routines. We can get up in the morning and get dressed and get to a desk like I have. We can do training like you're doing right now. And we can exercise regularly. Setting ourselves clear goals and purpose during time of change is really important. We also, when we're going through major change, we need to spell out the benefits. This thing called WIFM. What's in it for me? We need to tell people what's in it for them going through all this difficulty, for example, of self-isolation or through a major organization structure. What's in it for me? What's in it for the customer? What's in it for my colleagues? What's in it for the organization as a whole? And more and more importantly these days, particularly in the situation we're in now, why is it important to our community? And maybe why is it even important to our planet? So like I said, the first point is to create a sense of certainty, but we need to give people a sense of purpose as well. Understand why change is required. Give people an inspiring vision and communicate the benefits, especially what's in it for them at a very personal level. So let's move on to the third item, control, our need for control over the things that affect us. And this is about leadership style. We'd like to have a sense of control. We don't like to feel helpless. We don't like to feel that people are pulling our strings. And there are two extremes of leadership style, which you probably all know of. One is the tell mode at one end, and the other is the involving and empowering mode at the other. People who have ever been micromanaged, I don't know if any of you have ever had a manager that tells you exactly what you do, keeps correcting everything that you do. It can make life very difficult. People feel disrespected. You know what happens when they tell you exactly what to do and exactly how to do it? People, before they go to work, what do? They take their brain out and leave it behind at home because they know that it's not going to be required at work. Whereas at the other end, we have involvement and empowerment. That is where we try and involve people and get them to engage and think about things for themselves. Now, the tell mode is useful when somebody's just started work or if there's a crisis like the building's on fire. But the involve mode, the empowering mode, helps people do something which is called take ownership, feel that they have a say, feel that they have control. The important thing about ownership is that it becomes their project, not your project. So, for example, if something goes a little wrong at the start, which it normally does with any big change, if you're just in tell mode, they'll say, oh, well, they never asked me. No wonder it didn't work. I said it wasn't going to work from the beginning. Whereas if you involve and empower people, they'll make it their project. So if things go a bit wrong, they'll say, well, that's all right. Let's look for a solution. Let's not point the finger and blame other people, because it's our project, not somebody else's. So giving people control is hugely important. Even in the pandemic, we've seen people being given opportunity to get involved and to be part of the solution rather than just feeling helpless. So, for example, in the UK, they wanted 250,000 volunteers to work with the NHS. And in fact, 750,000 people signed up. So people were keen to get involved and be part of the solution rather than sitting on the sidelines. People are out there are volunteering shoppers. They're shopping for old people who are having to stay at home and self-isolate. My daughter is doing that herself, even today. And people are even volunteering to bring in the harvest. So I spend a great deal of my life helping organizations to empower and involve people. So moving this red dot from the left there in this tell mode to the right towards the empowering mode, yes? And how do you do that? Well, it takes quite a lot of effort. You do things like up in the top left-hand corner when I'm working with Royal Mail, going through a massive transformation. We gave them a chance to understand where the industry is going, how things are changing, how now everyone is not writing letters much anymore, but they're all doing a lot of internet shopping. Parcels are now king, which means you have to change the way you organize, change the technology you use, change the way you work. But by engaging and discussing and getting people to think about all of those issues, they come to their own conclusion. They decide, yes, I can see where the future is, and I can see that we need to change. You're far more likely to get people coming on board in those kind of situations. So it's important to engage and empower. Now, this might look like a lot of effort, and it often is, but it's far better than having to try and push in a change that nobody is on board with. So we've looked at creating a sense of certainty, creating a sense of purpose. Here are some actions for increasing a sense of control. Understand who your stakeholders are. They might be your customers, they might be your suppliers, they'll definitely be your employees, they'll be your senior management, they might be the community itself. When you're bringing about a change, understand who your stakeholders are and then involve them through dialogue, participation, involvement, empowerment. And you can use other things like steering groups where you get senior management together. In the UK, that's even happening at a government level where opposition politicians are being brought into cabinet to discuss these issues. So there's a sense of unity. And change champions, they're people in different departments and in different roles who are brought into the change, ask their opinion because they understand what's going on the front line, and they can become champions who then communicate that change to the rest of their colleagues. So that is 3 out of the 5 forces of change. We've talked about creating certainty, purpose, and control. Now, connection. This is a really interesting one, particularly in the times we're living in now. Our need to stay connected to people, habits, ideas, and things. And in a minute, I'm going to ask you a question about how you guys are managing to stay connected during this difficult time. I don't know how many of you are having to work from home. Certainly in the UK, it's a huge number of people. But anyway, we feel a connection to all sorts of things. Why have I got these pictures up here? Well, there's a teddy bear there. Maybe somebody got that teddy bear when they were a small child, and they have a great attachment to it. It might be falling apart and the stuffing might be coming out, but they have an emotional connection. We might feel emotionally connected to our football team, or we might be connected to some mementos or family heirlooms that we've had that have been passed down the generations. We might even feel highly connected to an old leather jacket that we wore when we were younger and felt super cool. Anyhow, we form connections, but when change comes along or difficult times come along, some of those connections are broken, and it can be really hard to leave those things behind. You might have come across this. Have you experienced situations where people found it hard to to let go of the past. That's one of the issues we often find when we're trying to improve and change things. People want to hang on to the old world and the old ways of doing things. So let's have a look at that. So let's have a look at an example. There's you in the middle. And here are just some of the things that you might feel connected to at work. Your team, the people you work with every day. Habits, routines, things that you do on a daily basis. You go to the coffee machine, or you meet up, or you have certain weekly meetings. You have a certain routine in your life. Even going and commuting to work is a routine. You have customers that you might have attachments to. You might become attached to your desk and your workplace and even your boss. So we have all of these kind of connections. And if we think, for example, about having to work at home, away from the office or away from your normal workplace, some of these are broken. We see the X's. You're not seeing as much of your team. The routines have changed. The connection to custom may have been lost or reduced. You may not even be going to your workplace. And this creates a sense of loss. So this is another reason. So we've said people resist change because they feel uncertain. They resist change because they lack a sense of purpose. They resist change because they feel that they have no control over it. But they also resist because of this loss, this sense of loss of connection, letting go, having to let go of the past. So some of the things, let's have a look at a few of the things that you can do during this time of COVID-19 where people are self-isolating. I'd just like to run a quick survey with you guys just to see, how are you staying connected? Are you using any of the following methods to stay connected? That is, if you're working from home and having to isolate. So are you having regular online gatherings with your team? Are you having regular online and telephone conversations with your team members? Are you introducing regular work routines at home? Are you getting regular exercise at home? Are you offering online services to your customers? Are you talking regularly with your customers or suppliers? Have you set up an office space at home so that you can feel like there's some sense of normality, or do you have any other? So if you could just pick any of those that you are doing, so you can answer more than one. While I have a sip of coffee. I have to tell you, it's very odd talking to my computer instead of to human beings. It's something that I've got to get used to. I know there are human beings on the other side. If a couple of people said they're doing other things that are not on the list, or if you do have something that's not on the list, you might want to send it through to me on a chat. So good, a good number of you have voted, more than half. Just give you a little bit longer. Very good. Well done, everybody. Well over half of you have voted. So I'm now going to end that. I hope that's fine with people. So now I'm sharing the results with you. So what can we see in these results? Well, we are seeing that 34% of you are doing regular online gatherings with your team. 34% of the people that voted. So that's good, regular online gatherings. I know a lot of organizations are having their weekly meetings online. Regular online telephone conversations, one-to-one with each of my team members. That's really good. That's very good. 45% are staying connected with their people. Regular work routines at home. That's also good. That's quite a hard one to do. Tempting to sit in your pajamas. There's nothing particularly wrong with that as long as you can still work. Regular exercise routine, that's good. That's great for the body and for the mind. Offering online services to customers, yes, just like Aztec is doing now with online webinars, online training. We've got people talking, we've got one person who's also talking to regularly to their customers. And a lot of you have set up office space at home. I'm lucky. Well, I often work at home, so I have up in my loft at the top of the house, I have an office already set up, so that's quite helpful to me. Good. Oh gosh, sorry. I realized I hadn't shared that with you folks. I apologize for that. So now you should all be able to see the results. Apologize for that. I've just been reading them out. There's me. I'm on a learning curve here. The world is changing. Okay, so hopefully you can see all those results. A lot of people, online gatherings and one-to-one, regular routines at home, and exercise. And by the way, you can watch all of this again as it is being recorded. It will be uploaded to the Aztec website. So I'm just going to close that now and go back to where we were. So yes, it looks like many of you are doing a very good job in terms of trying to stay connected. It's really important to us. So these gatherings help us stay connected to our team. Routines help us just basically feel like we are still at work and that we get a sense of normality. And then there's offering online services, setting up an office space at home. So what else can we do? Well, here is a little technique I'd like to share with you, and it's called the lose, keep, gain grid. So this is a kind of there's a lot of psychology around attachment. However, this is really simple tool for anybody to use. You don't have to be a psychologist to understand and use this. What you do is you gather people together before a change is happening, and you talk to them. You get them to talk together in groups. Say, well, what are we going to lose through this change? What are we going to keep through this change? And what are we going to gain through this change? And what are our concerns and feelings about this? Now, this is really important because it gets stuff out there. Allows people to be heard, to discuss their concerns and their issues. Also, when people write things down on paper, they sometimes look and go, well, actually, that's not such a devastating change. It also focuses people on what they're going to keep, so that things won't change. And also, change comes with benefits. So how will we benefit? People tend to focus on the negative rather than on the positive. Let's just have a look at a very quick example. So in Royal Mail, the postman had to give up their bicycles and working alone, and had to share a van with another postman. Reason for that is, as I said earlier, the movement to parcels, movement to online shopping, and the movement away from letters that people are no longer sending. So they were going to lose out. No more bike, no more own boss, but they were going to keep the same job, the same tasks, and the same colleagues. And they were able to keep a jacket and a warm drink in the van for cold days, and they had a partner that they could chat to and who could help them. And they had concerns about, well, my partner might slow me down, or I won't be as fit. And we then were able to have a discussion with them about actually how the routes are being designed and could be redesigned to make sure that people didn't slow each other down. And the fact that actually they would be walking rather than cycling. And there was even a move where those bicycles were given away to a charity in Malawi and now being ridden around in a town in Malawi. So people could at least feel that their bicycles were going to a useful, good home. So this is a really helpful technique. Another thing to think about is, what are the big life-changing experiences that we go through outside of work, and what do we do about those? Well, what we do about them is we mark them. We have all kinds of things called ceremonies. We've done this for thousands of years. We name children. We have ceremonial opening of offices. We have long ceremonial weddings. These are the great things that we do outside of work. And we use ceremony. And ceremony can also be used at work. For example, there was a big utilities company that I worked with that moved from having cars to drive around the plant, which was a huge plant, to moving to tricycles. This was a big change. So on the Thursday, before things were due to go live on the Sunday, various things happened. Well, the president of the company rode around site on a tricycle, so made a symbolic gesture that, you know, if I can cycle around, then the rest of you can. And then there was a bit of a celebration, and people were handed the keys to their own personal bikes. And people just marked the fact that from Sunday, things were going to be different. So this is another psychological approach to helping people let go of the past and move into a new world. And there's a big opportunity, and this is one that I want to take up with one of my clients when we return from isolation. There's an opportunity to draw a line in the sand and step over it into the new world. So you might want to take some time out to ask yourself and members of your team, we're going to come back after all of this crisis. We're going to come back to work. What is it that we can leave behind, the things that we've known all along that were holding us back? What should we keep that's been great and will be useful in the future? And what new things will we do? There may be a lot more online working, a lot more online services and contact with our customers. But there may be other great things that we've learned or that we've always wanted to do. And because we've been away from work for a long time, there's a chance for a fresh start. So this may offer us a benefit from all of this difficulty. So to make and break connections, to help people let go of the past, you can use that lose, keep, gain grid. You can use ceremony. And when you get back together again, it's a chance to build new connections, to rebuild the teams, and to recognize and reward people for taking on new behaviors and new ways of doing things. So I'm going to offer you another survey. How is the world going to look after COVID? What is your view? How will the world of work change once COVID-19 pandemic is over? In addition to, I know there's going to be a lot of economic impact, but what are the other changes? So here is the multiple choice. It's things like more work. Is there going to be more working from home, more training online, more focus on looking after our communities, more concern for employee health and fitness? Is there going to be more focus on hygiene and cleanliness? Are people going to become more environmentally aware? Are we going to change working hours to stagger those working hours so that we don't all come in during the rush hour? And we're going to continue to keep people physically separate. How are those? What are those changes? What do you think? Please vote. Okay, I'll give you a moment longer, folks. You're still voting, I can see. This time I'm going to remember to, when I end the voting, to actually share the results with you immediately. Okay. Good, we're over half. Over 50% so far. Very good. Please keep going. If you haven't had a chance to vote, please, a little bit longer. Good stuff, thank you. Okay, we're going to have to stop now, folks. I can see the votes still coming in. Give you another few more seconds to click and vote. Okay, I'm ending the vote now. I'm sharing the results with you. Okay, folks, so I'm really hopeful that you can all see the results. We're going to see more working from home. Yes, that could well be a major change. Now that people have learned the lessons, organizations will say, well, actually, maybe more people can do this. More training will go online, definitely. I'm certainly going to be offering running some online training courses in the coming months. More focus on looking after communities. Certainly 23% people have said that. And 37% said more concern for employee health and fitness. Yes, definitely there's been a greater focus on health and fitness. And clearly 47% saying more focus on hygiene, 21% more environmental awareness. People start to think about the world. Changes in working hours, 37%. Yes, we could have staggering of start times and people continuing to physically separate. We have 26%. So this is kind of unprecedented change, certainly in my lifetime, and I'm probably a lot older than any of you. So a lot of change is happening, yes? We are going to have to change the way we work and the way we operate. So let's look at how that happens. So success, which is the fifth and final of the 5 forces of change, is all about our need for a sense of achievement. And the thing is, as I said earlier, during times of turmoil and change, performance can go down. Partly that's because there's morale, concerns about morale, around anxiety and frustration. And obviously, as I said right at the start, our job as leaders is to minimize that dip. However, what happens also is that people have to climb a learning curve. So quite often we have response A, the red line, where things get worse and people say, oh, well, I knew it wouldn't work. Let's go back to the old ways of doing things. And what we want is response B. Yes, we'll take some pain, but we'll get some gain. So the question is, how on earth do you get people to live through a period of pain as they try to grapple with new ways of working? And as we've seen, there's a lot of change coming down the track. But also during organizational change, I've seen on many occasions, I go to organizations and they say, "Oh, we did lean training, lean re-engineering at our factory, and everyone was so enthusiastic, and in the first week things seemed to get better, and now just go and look at our production line. It's the same as it ever was. Everything's just gone back to square one." So how do we stop that reversion, as I would call it? Well, there's a processy way of looking at it, if you like. We have to be really clear when we go back to work and the world of work has changed, or when we go through an organization change. We need to define success. What are the new key performance indicators? What are the attitudes we're looking for and the behaviors, and what are we expecting of our people now? And we communicate, and we need to train people. I know people right at the start said that some changes were undermined by a lack of training. That is a fundamental. You need to invest in giving people the new skills. But even when we communicate and even when we train people, the question is, will they do it when they get back to work? Will they go through the pain barrier? So they need to take action at work. And that's often where the issue lies. I did this with a retail company, and they were getting their retail staff in stores to interact far more intensively with their customers. And that was going to be difficult and awkward for them. And there would be a strong motivation just to go back to the old ways. So they buddied people up together. They said, support each other, observe each other. And they said, above all, it's okay to try the new ways of doing things and even do them not so well, but it's unacceptable not to try. Give it a go. It's like riding a bicycle. We all know that when you first ride a bicycle, you might wobble. You might even fall off. And if anyone has taught a child to ride a bicycle, they support them. They encourage them. They say, look, it will be difficult. You will wobble. You may even fall off. But you need to get back on the bike. You need to recognize and celebrate people who are implementing, who are taking the change in their own hands and doing things. So people need support and encouragement, as well as training and communication. So to create this sense of achievement, to secure this sense of achievement, we need to clearly define success. We need to train people, but make it okay to fail, unacceptable not to try. We need to coach and support people up the learning curve. We need to celebrate success in the new ways of doing things. Let's celebrate people who work from home, who manage webinars, who talk to their teams on a daily basis. Let's support all of those behaviors that are going to be so useful in the future. And make sure that you change targets and recognition and rewards so that they are aligned to the new ways of doing things. So we've had most of an hour together. As I said, I will try and give you some insights into all the elements that are going to help you through periods of turmoil, but also through any organizational change, wherever you have a leadership role, where you have a team of people or a department of people. How do you get them to respond positively? Well, if you can build up their sense of certainty, if you can give them a clear vision and a sense of purpose, if you can empower and involve them so they feel in control, if you can help them let go of the past and take on the new, if you could support them to be successful and to be rewarded for doing new things, then people can choose to positively engage with that change. And you'll have done your job as leaders. You'll have minimized that resistance, minimized the disruption, and maximized any benefits achieved through that change. So it's not easy, but this is a framework that works for people. So you might want to delve into that in a bit more detail. So there's two simple ways that you can do that. One is the two books that underpin what we're talking about. The 5 Forces of Change is more the textbook and the detail behind all of this, but contains case studies as well. 5 Tales of Change are for people who like stories. So it's a storybook version, and it's available on Amazon and other book websites. Hopefully you have access to those in your part of the world. There's also a lot of Aztec courses coming up. So if you go onto the Aztec webinar website, you will see obviously a number of webinars, including today's, but you will also see a number of online training courses that are coming up in the coming months. And that will give you access to training even at a distance. I myself, I'm running a course called Leading Successful Change, working with your people to make change happen. And I'm doing that as an online course. I'm doing that on the 1st and 2nd of July. And obviously that will give me or you the opportunity to delve into this at a more practical level, to look at case studies and to look at how to apply this in your own world. So we are coming towards the end of our time now. If you have any questions, I have a few minutes now when I can answer those questions. Please tap away. If some of you need to head off for work or other things, then I very much enjoyed talking to you today. I hope that some of you will return in July, where I can spend a couple of days with you and go into this stuff in more depth. But if you have a question that you'd like answering, I have 2 minutes left. I'm even happy to stay a little bit longer after the hour is up if people continue to have questions. I see some people are typing, so I'll see if those come through as questions. I can mark them as questions, and then I can even share them with you on the screen. I see 5 people are typing now. Okay, Reem says, thank you, Doctor, and I'm saying thank you, Reem, as well. And let's have a look at some of these questions. Let's see what I can do with these questions here as they come through. So, okay, let's take the first of those questions. Let's see what I can do. Oops. Okay. Can I make that public? Oh, this is where. Okay, well, I'll have a look at those questions. So, thank you for the engagement. Let's just see. Okay. So I've got a question. What is your view of Kotter's 8 steps to change model? Yes, I think, it's a good model. I think, again, if you follow it step by step, then, it is very helpful in leading you to successful outcomes. The thing that I would say about it is it doesn't really delve very much deeply into the people side of things, so that you kind of, whilst it tells you what to do, it doesn't tell you focus as much on the why you need to do it. So I think it's important to maybe, yes, to use Kotter's step-by-step model, but at the same time, I think you need to understand more deeply the human side of change. I have another question here. This is from Sunny. Employee keying has always been tough. How we get over that? Oh gosh, I'm afraid I have not. I'm afraid, Sunny, that's not come through clearly. It says employee keying. I'm not sure what that is. Sorry, there was a typo there, Sunny. If you can type that again. Okay, so we've covered the Kotters. Let's have another look. Question: future of work from home versus going back to work. Profitable or not? Health and social impact. This is going to be a tough one, isn't it? We need to, we've yet to see how productive people are going to have to learn and maybe even be trained. For my money, ideally people get back together. It's quite hard to reproduce what happens when people are together physically in a room. But I think we're learning more and more. People are using all kinds of meeting software, whether it be Skype or Zoom. Certainly from a health perspective, certainly in this country, we need to wait until the pandemic starts to fall. We're already getting towards that direction. But I think from a social point of view, yes, we do need to remain isolated. If we can get back to work, so much the better. But I think there's an opportunity here as well, for all sorts of reasons, to have people working at home. You avoid the commute. It's better for the environment. It can be better for people's mental health. So what we might see is a mix and match. People spending time face to face and spending time in isolation. Let me see if there's any more questions. Sani, employees buying into change agenda has always been hard. How do we go around that problem? Yes, getting buy-in. Buy-in is the key thing. And people will buy into stuff that they feel a part of. So when we looked earlier, and you can go back and look at the recording, when we looked at this idea of control, this idea of giving people a chance to be part of the solution, giving people a chance to contribute their ideas, consulting with people. That is one of the big ways of getting buy-in, using change champions, people from within each department, to advise the change so that it is built with people in mind. And those change champions, for example, if you've rolled out the change in one area of the business, get the people there to talk to the rest of the people. Yes, they'll say, we found it difficult, but we came through at the end, and we've had all of the following benefits. So really, all of what I've said today is very fundamental in getting buy-in. You need to be communicating with people so that they have this sense of certainty. Spell out a clear vision. Spell out the benefits to people so that they will buy into it. Give them that sense of control. Help them let go of the old ways of doing things. They may be done the same thing in the same way for 10 or 20 years. Give them some help in letting go and help them up the learning curve. And that's where you'll get the most buy-in. I hope that's helped you. How do you as leaders keep themselves motivated? Because there are times you feel like giving up. That is really, really important. Thank you, Abdulaziz. That's a great question. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and answer that one. So it is tough, isn't it? If you are leading a team of people and they are concerned and anxious, then you might also be concerned and anxious as the leader yourself. So you need to apply these 5 forces to yourself. You need to create certainty by gathering more information and creating greater understanding yourself about the change. So you need to do that. You need to give yourself, for example, a clear, make sure you understand the vision, and then start to be in control. If you are leading a team and there is a change happening and it's being organized by head office or whoever, become involved, volunteer, become part of the focus groups or whatever it is, become part of the discussion. So you feel more informed, you feel more part of it, and you feel more in control. You're also going to have to test yourself in letting go of the old world. Make sure that you get trained yourself in all the new skills and new ways of doing things, so that you feel successful. So there's a way, and I have to say, I know I'm talking about my book, but in my book, in one of the final chapters, it's all about how do you apply 5 forces change to you personally so that you can be an effective leader. I hope that helps you a little bit. Abdulaziz, thank you. That's a huge question and one that I've grappled with for many years. I hope I've helped you a little on that. So I'm just paging up. I can see another question. Oh no, that's one that I've answered. I think I've had a go at most. Anyway, I'd like to thank people who have been sending me through thanks. Much appreciated. And as I said, I've really enjoyed being with you for this hour today, and I'm going to now close the meeting, and then at some point in the near future, you'll be able to watch all of this on the Aztec website on record. And I hope that I might see 1 or 2 of you again, or a few of you again, on the 1st and 2nd of July when I run a Leading Successful Change course. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm now going to close the meeting.